at the Knowlton School, and her research focuses on the visualization of transboundary hydrologic. I'm sorry, I'm not wearing my glasses. But the visualization of transboundary hydrologic and infrastructure systems, which is super cool. She came from DLANDstudio. We hosted Suzanne Drake from DLANDstudio for a talk here a couple of years ago, and that's actually how we got to know Susie and made the connection, so we're glad that that is continuing. So anyway, without further ado, I'll just turn it over to Halina Forbes. So Joby, welcome.
Thank you very much, Carrie, for the introduction. It's really exciting to be here and spend a little bit of time in London with this short trip. And so what we're going to speak with you today is about a competition called Memorials for the Future, which we worked on in collaboration with two other partners this past summer. And so we're going to start by giving you a little bit of background on the competition and then kind of delve into our actual proposal. So Memorials for the Future was started by the National Parks Service, the National Capital Planning Commission, and Van Allen Institute. And its goal was to reimagine how we really think and feel and experience memorials. And focusing specifically on Washington, D.C., which we can really think of as a place of collective memory for the nation. And there are more than 160 memorials and monuments in the city, which commemorate a wide range of issues, from individuals to our relationships with other nations, our collective experiences, as well as important figures in throughout history. And in fact, L'Enfant, who was the architect who designed the city urban plan, upon seeing the site on which the city would be built, stated that it was a pedestal waiting for a monument. Now, we might not necessarily be thinking of what happens today, which is essentially the fact that memorials throughout the mall in particular are taking up the urban space and the open space to a really large degree. And, oh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to, scroll through notes without changing the size of the slide, which is a bit of an experience. But, so that's not working, that's okay. And so the issue with traditional memorials is that they are fixed in place, they're often land intensive, and they can't necessarily be changed to accommodate changing views and relationships, or even incorporate alternative interpretations of a given narrative. And so with this in mind, the project partners it's with this in mind that Memorials for the Future was started as a call to designers, artists, to social scientists to develop new ways to commemorate people and events in a way that's more inclusive, more flexible, and in a way that can actually enrich Washington, D.C.'s urban open space and its landscape, while responding to the limitations of traditional bronze horse style commemoration. And so they established a set of goals, and the goals of the competition were to create approaches and forms of memorialization that advance a framework for the planning and design of commemorative works in the 21st century, demonstrate how temporary, mobile, interactive, or adaptive displays can provide memorable experiences that were also cost efficient, develop ways that are more inclusive of multiple narratives and have the potential to be flexible as our ideas and attitudes change and shift, as well as honor the scale, context, and really national significance of Washington, D.C. itself. And so after reviewing 89 proposals from 8 countries that covered a range of disciplines from design, art, engineering, architecture, landscape architecture, anthropology, oral history, environmental science, and among others, the project partners picked 30 semifinalists and And the timeline was short. We were notified of being finalists in early June, and over a 3-month period, we regularly shared our progress with the project partners, in addition to having 4 meetings in Washington, D.C. after the Capital Planning Commission. We also had weekly check-ins with Dan Allen, and feedback was provided at really critical points throughout the development of this process that led to an exhibition of the work on September 8th. Now, we had our own coordinating to do within our team over the course of about 120 days, each of us living in 4, well, I guess 3 states. We had to travel through 6 countries, 26 cities, and 3 of us moved. So it was a big endeavor and coordination, and not without its technical difficulties, which you can see. And the competition culminated with an exhibit called Not Set in Stone at the GFK Center for Performing Arts. And we see a couple of scenes from that. And so with this in mind, we're just going to give you the presentation as we sort of gave it to the project partners and help cement us as an honorable mention of the competition. So our project is called American Wild Memorial. And the national parks are a living memorial to a really uniquely idea of wilderness. And the goal of the project was to capture the majesty of the nation's landscape and bring it to its capital. And we can interpret this as an act of memorializing the American wilderness itself and preserving the memory of the landscape at a moment in time. In keeping with the Memorials for the Future concept, we were challenging the notion of a memorial as a static and permanent construction, with the thought that the parks themselves are ever changing and in a constant state of dynamism and flux. And in celebration of the National Parks Centennial, President Obama expressed his thoughts of the experience of his personal experience of visiting the national parks. And he talked about their importance to the American spirit. He stated, you can't capture this on an iPad or a flat screen or even an oil painting. You've got to come here and breathe it in yourself. And it's a park that captures the wonder of the world and changes you by being there. It's almost like the spirit of America itself is right here. And he also expressed his concern for the future of the national parks in the face of climate change, and asked what legacy would remain for future generations, stating, make no mistake about it, climate change is no longer just a threat, it's a reality. And as we look ahead in the coming years, rising temperatures could mean no more glaciers at Glacier National Park, no more Joshua trees at Joshua Tree. And so with this call, we realize that climate change is altering ecosystems in truly unprecedented ways, and it's threatening the conservation initiative of the National Park Service. And we believe it's a unique moment in history that requires an innovative approach to preserving and, moreover, memorializing the existing parks while simultaneously advocating for their future. So we asked ourselves, how can we memorialize a changing landscape? And we could start by looking at how national parks have been commemorated and memorialized in the past. And landscape drawings and paintings were the first commemorations of our national wilderness, and later postcards and stamps further promoted a sense of national pride surrounding the importance of wilderness preservation and conservation. The parks were also extensively photographed by the likes of Nancy Adams and more, which cultivated a really the same time, other social media users can engage in a shared conversation about their experiences. So here we can see the hashtag Great Smoky Mountains and the variety of different images and experiences of which our community communicated across a variety of different platforms. Additionally, live webcams that are managed by each individual park can integrate real-time video with environmental data like weather and air quality, which can impact the scenic views. Google has also established a number of different street view treks, which allow for you to go on 360-degree hikes through a few different national parks. And what we realized was that some of these platforms can be available in real time, and others can incorporate environmental data. Some can offer 360 views. But what they don't do is allow for a shared experience that can more closely honor the experience of visiting a national park. And so when we look more closely at the distribution of national parks in wilderness areas in relationship to urban areas, we can start to see that parks and wilderness areas are located predominantly on the western half of the country, while urban density is particularly dense along the eastern seaboard. And with the exception of the Great Smoky Mountains, most visited parks are also in the west, and few parks are in close driving distance to Washington, D.C. So imagine you're a resident or visitor to D.C. It's pretty hard to reach any large-scale national parks. Cuyahoga and Shenandoah are within a day's riding distance. But we imagine that D.C.'s existing memorial landscape could provide context for a future memorial to national parks. So we asked, how could we bring the experience of the national parks to our nation's capital? And we started by looking at the existing memorial landscape. And when we zoom in, we can see a concentration along Massachusetts Avenue and along and within the National Mall and West Potomac Park. So each of those orange dots is an existing memorial. And what we also notice is just as the highways connect our national parks, so too the DC Metro starts to connect the capital's memorial landscape. So each of those black dots is a metro stop. And we noticed that the metro provided a pretty unique opportunity because the architecture itself was designed to be more than just infrastructure. The indirect lighting, which was designed by William Land, turned the vault into an underground sky, which was untouched by mezzanine signs or hanging lights. And in this way, that design connected the public space on the surface to the infrastructure below and really helped to generate this new form of civic pride.
So then we began to ask ourselves, how can we select a station that reaches the broadest audience in the memorial core? When we look at the DC Metro ridership, we can see that the most used stations sit near the memorial core. And we selected the L'Enfant Plaza Station as the ideal site. It is closely located within the memorial core, and its high ridership connects the east-west blue lines with the north-south green lines, drawing from a cross-section of the DC population. The copper passageway connecting all the lines creates a unique opportunity for the memorial where its location can be contemplated, yet doesn't interfere with the operations of the DC Metro. So how can L'Enfant Plaza Station become a platform within the existing memorial landscape? If we look more closely at our perception of memorials and national parks in Washington, D.C., we imagine them at their most picturesque and glorious. However, in visiting these spaces, we are also often confronted with a very different reality. This is also true of our national parks, which we often imagine as a solitary experience. However, they typically include other nature and and the shared experience of the national parks can spark a conversation with a stranger. We can point out a rainbow in the distance, chat about our hometown, or take pictures of one another. So when we look at these experiences and that of the DC Metro rider, we see different senses of place. The Metro is experienced through circulation and movement, and the memorial landscape through destinations. The national parks are experienced through both circulation and destinations. So then we ask how we can bring a new sense of place to L'Enfant Plaza Station. The juxtaposition of the national parks and the iconic architecture of the DC Metro creates a new dynamic space within the capital, and it transforms a place of passage into one of pause. The sights and sounds of American Wild create a new sense of place within the L'Enfant Plaza Station. This memorial can provide a wide range of experiences. At its most simple, it inspires a sense of awe, a new memory, or a break from routine. At its most ambitious, the memorial is a call to action, simultaneously memorializing the past and the current national parks while petitioning for their preservation. An example of this latter experience is that the memorial viewer is inspired to visit a national park and learn about the specific challenges it faces. This unique experience can then bring a new appreciation and awareness of the American landscape. A possible outcome of visiting a national park is a newfound commitment to ensuring their existence for the next 100 years. The memorial of the future is no longer a steward of the past, but rather a steward for the future. So view, visit, vote reflects the memorial of the future as something greater than its initial experience. And so now we'll get into some of the specifics about how we can begin to augment the existing DC Metro. The primary media of the American Wild Memorial is projection. The memorial is identified in orange and utilizes the passageways between the green and blue lines within the L'Enfant Plaza Station. The memorial is visible from both the upper and lower platforms, but fully experienced in the passageway as to optimize safety and not disrupt the DC Metro operations. Projection mapping is a technology used to turn objects, such as copper ceilings of the DC Metro, into a display surface for image projection. Specialized software can interact with the projector and to fit any desired image onto a complex surface. Additionally, multiple projectors can be mapped together to create a unified immersive image. This diagram shows three projectors atop a wayfinding pylon. The vertical wayfinding pylons, identified here in orange, serve as the infrastructure for both the projector and the sound installations. Existing LCD advertising screens and glass elevator shafts will feature additional signage for American Wild and provide information about how to learn more about the parks. More specifically, QR or response codes will link to existing national parks websites and phone applications. So how will we curate the memory of the national parks? As we discussed earlier in the presentation, the National Park Service has a long tradition of engaging artists. More recently, a project called One Day in Yosemite engaged 30 filmmakers spread throughout the park, gathering footage over a 24-hour period. Building upon these traditional and newer representation methods, we propose that each park will be documented by a selected fellow to reveal the subtleties of a day in the park. The memorial is curated to last for 59 days, 1 day for each of the national parks. The parks will be featured in order of their establishment, thereby creating a timeline of the 100-year history of the National Park Service. Just to point out, these would be video images, not static images shown here.
And one of the goals of having this potentially be created by a variety of different artists is that you would get a variety of different perspectives and not necessarily always the most iconic shot, but there could be other subtleties
Commuters seen here look beyond the platform to the sky of Sequoia National Park. The station is transformed from a space of commuting to one of commemoration. Metro users seen here through the station, rise through the station from beneath the formations of Arches National Park. Full-scale immersive video expands access to the National Park experience, raising awareness and creating memories that outlast the installation itself. Visitors seen here are transported to Yosemite National Park. So we ended our presentation to the NCPC and the jury with this video that we hoped would show what the experience might be like in a dynamic and temporal memorial for the future. Yeah, they did. One of them cried.
But yeah, I think it was our goal to keep this short, since this could be more of a roundtable, so we could hopefully have a discussion and hear thoughts.
I backpack, so like I go to these places because I want to, but I think one of the toughest reasons for people to travel to go to these places is kind of like, you can watch it on documentaries and stuff nowadays, and I think like being able to immerse yourself and experience it as it is now is very interesting, but I think through your concept of view, visit, vote, did you guys like think about looking at this as more of like a dramatic, like kind of almost scary targeting experience in which like you can immerse them in like a forest fire or something like that, just so they know the reality of what these parks are going through?
We actually did have a lot of conversations about that, because we did want, so there's a certain level of having a project be didactic, right, and really be explicit in its objectives.
how much can you really communicate in a really short amount of time? We thought if we could get them interested, then perhaps that would, blend into more. And we think of the person that would vote as the kind of extreme. There's a spectrum of possible outcomes, and maybe 100 people see it and one ends up becoming an advocate for parks, but that's one more than perhaps they had before.
And it was also about bringing this experience to a broader audience that wouldn't. So maybe a lot of us in this room already appreciate national parks and have been there or want to visit, and that's not necessarily that is something that's culturally specific, and not everyone. Actually, one of the people on the jury said, "Oh yeah, no, this sounds great because I don't want to go get dirty." So this sounds better to me.
Well, you can go to a national park and not get dirty. There's a lot of scenic drives.
Yeah, so one thing is opening people's eyes. You can imagine maybe a child coming through this with their class and they've never even seen a landscape like this or known that was part of their.
So basically, that's your stance. I think it's also something that's like, you guys proposed one option for this type of technology, for this even type of proposal too, which is very interesting, because like, you can do like space things, you can do whatever you want through like national parks, but I understand that
Yeah.
is like.
Actually, I think, but this idea of civic engagement was really critical from the beginning. And actually, some of the initial conversations we had about this was this idea that, and so it's interesting to kind of see how it evolved, was that, well, maybe each state could have a real-time video that they could deploy throughout their state when something critical is happening. So maybe, there's it could be something majestic, a celebration, or it could also be a town hall meeting in Flint, Michigan, and that then you could be transported to that space right in DC and connecting with that. So the really idea of, but ultimately, in looking at who our client was in this project, it kind of evolved into a clearer message of the national parks that I think really could be opened up for a variety of different issues and contexts. But another thing for the national parks in these recordings is we think that it would be a valuable relative to the scientific record. So you can imagine that in 50 years, scientists might be able to record the biopsy and do analysis based on images, based on audio recordings, as well as maybe sort of a cultural time capsule as well.
Fantastic project. This is really great. I really liked his ideas too, and I had like kind of a follow-up on that, and some thoughts about the idea of a memorial or a monument. Was this phrased as a memorial? Yeah. So that kind of usually connotates the death of something or something that's passed, and I kind of like the idea that he was suggesting about the dangers posed to the monument. If there was some idea about how the change is looking at, like an era, a past era that has now come to pass or something with that. I would definitely say like the forest fires and the cabin glaciers should probably be shown at the next inauguration on that day. So kind of a shift in the the quality of the environment in the future, but along with like that idea, like are you looking at this as like a something that's dying, or is the change seen as a bad, like a terrible thing? And also, I wanted to ask if this
Yeah, so, so ours was about the national parks. The team, I guess I could go to that slide. Because I think it is interesting. So climate chronograph was in a site within the memorial for is on the river that will get flooded from climate change, and so they planted a grid of trees, and the idea was that you would actually, over the course of your lifetime, or the lifetime of you and your children, see this kind of change and this degradation of the site. So that was a little bit of a different idea than what's happening very close to here, where they're actually having to, I think it's the Jefferson Memorial is like falling down, and they have to reinforce it, and they just are spending all this money trying to keep it in place. So it's kind of an interesting commentary on what's happening with the current memorials. And the immigrant engaged kind of different bus routes in the city. So each bus route has, there's bus routes named after different states. So each one would kind of highlight different immigration related to those different states. And it was very much kind of something that you could experience through signage and through like kind of podcasts, like oral, and things like that, and voiceover, which was probably, I think, the most progressive in terms of like future technology that might not even exist quite yet, but we can imagine existing, this idea of having all of these pink parrots that would live in the memorial landscape in DC, and you would tell them stories, and then they would walk around, and then they would stop places and tell you back things that other people had said. And so in some cases that could have been something historic that happened there, but in other instances it might have just been your opinion. And they had a lot of, one of the big questions that the jury posed periodically, and it was one that we were asked, and definitely one that they were asked, is how do you curate those experiences, and how do you like, do you let the parrot say anything that anyone said? I mean, is that really what you want or not? And you have to kind of, including hate speech, and it becomes, it starts to become kind of an important thing to think about when you're talking about things that people will engage with in that way. But they decided that they were welcome to all whatever it would be, and they weren't going to regulate it. Was their point stance.
Was there some discussion within the groups or the presenters about the shift from memorializing to now kind of documenting things, present things or future things even, as it seems?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the voiceover team, they thought that maybe the birds could flock if there was some sort of protest happening or something like that, and collect people's dialogues. I think with ours, we figured that either the installation could come down after a period of time and perhaps move to another location, or it could just stay there, and it could then be kind of a platform for other projections that maybe the DC Metro or other people might decide is of value.
And responding to your first question about, are we making a statement that the national parks are dead? I think we would say that the national parks are already a memorial that is
guess I wondered what thought you gave to that component, and how, if there is a sound component.
There is a sound component, absolutely. I think there would need to be some very specialized consultants to figure out how to deal with that with the train.
Yeah.
But I think that does provide something that is broader than just imagery. And I think originally, when we kind of had these, there was an idea at one point that we would maybe have these kinds of pods, right? And people would go in it, and maybe even like the temperature would change and all these things. But you throw ideas out there in the beginning and you kind of take them away. So it was always kind of embedded in our thought process.
Yeah, and so we thought we could actually use the existing, because there is a network of speakers throughout the subway to make the announcement. And so essentially those pylons which project, the red line is arriving in 5 minutes, start to actually project the sound. And then another thing that in terms of logistics that we really had to work with was this idea of safety. And so you don't want people looking up as the train's falling down, these were people's comments.
The jury
And
has to know the answer to
so,
that.
what you can see here is the site we chose is the train line is what you can see in the middle, and this is essentially just a linear platform where you can get down to the lower level. So there are no trains here, but it still has the same architecture. It's still highly immersive. You can look across. You can look across the other direction and see across the train platform into another
Yeah,
wall.
so if you're on this side and you look across, you can see it here, which is pretty nice. So you could even get the suggestion that something's happening over there, and then if you really want to, maybe you wander down and across.
And then it can also be seen from the lower level. And then in addition to picking the site, if you're not familiar with DC, the metro line. The L'Enfant Plaza Station that we chose connects, essentially the demographic breakdown in DC is broken down by north-south and east-west. And so this is one of the only sites that intersects both north-south and east-west connections. So it would be serving the largest transect of the DC community. So here you can see, looking across through the train, where you will see it.
I love the fact that you chose that station. It's my favorite station. Because it's a trail junction for those of us who pay attention to alternative transportation. And our park has a trail down, its major feature is a trail down the side. My question is, did you think about, the gap is still there between, well, I saw it, therefore I don't have to go there. Part of going there is not just the sounds, which are a very big deal, but the feel, walking on trails, the feel of trails and the touch of the stone, because so much of the Western national parks is about the geology of the stone. Did you think about bringing an artifact, a touch artifact from as many of or a tree from Joshua Tree, or some kind of symbolic, touchable thing that would also make people know that this is not usual, this isn't the stuff that your city is built out of,
Right.
and make them want to go there and have a series of artifacts, which also ties it more to the traditional idea of I hate the term memorial because it does imply death, a commemoration, a something. Did you think about the touch?
I
not really be what it is, but it becomes this memory that they take with them, and sometimes that's what the idea of the memorial really is very personal. And so, you know, maybe we can't achieve everything with the projection, but, you know, it can be something that kind of lingers with you in a different kind of way.
And I think what was important to us too, to that end, is this idea that the national parks really, this idea of a shared experience. If you saw the rendering that we first had in our initial proposal, we imagined that it was going to be enabled with an app that you would be surrounded in this environment, could pull up your smartphone and be given information about the parks, maybe that could have the more didactic data about climate change, about the environment, about biodiversity, things like that. But then what we realized is that, no, in a national parks, you want people to put down their phone. You want them to actually talk with the person they're next to and say, oh my gosh, did you see that? Look, there's a rainbow, right? And actually, Halina had visited a national park and had that experience over the summer. And just like, wait, yeah, this is really what happened. And you say, oh, where are you from? And so in a way, these landscapes not only connect us to, you know, our collective landscape, to this idea of wilderness and to nature, to the space, but they also connect us to each other as we share that experience. So really getting actually kind of rid of the phone component, I think, pretty important.
The vault idea, we see distance photos, you know, of the landscapes from a distance, and you don't know how high the hoops are or the arches are. But having those, I mean, they're still not to scale, but having you be below and seeing the trees above you and the arches above you is more akin to being there.
Right.
That was terrific.
And the goal would be to approximate the scale as closely as possible. And so what we would imagine is you would have to have a linear set of cameras that is essentially the distance of the vault that could take real-time video and stitch it all together. That would require quite a bit of consulting.
We had to put together a budget, even though this was never, the premise of the competition was broadcast. If there's performances, they videotape the performances and project them at a larger scale within the plaza. So there's already this kind of, I think between those, a little bit of a dialogue and that kind of shared kind of thinking on how space can change.
And
Yes,
Justine Holtzman had just written a book called Responsive Landscapes. It's all about responsive technologies in landscape architecture. Justine Holtzman, she wrote it with Bradley Cantrell. And that was just, came out with Rutledge this summer also. So, yeah, very much kind of media thinking initially. And then a lot of our work is about this idea of representation as a tool to kind of challenge conceptions. And so I think that was
I've had to work on a number of like temporary parks, and they're difficult, and if you want to make them look good, you need a lot more money than you think. And the planting is just shouldn't try. It's my final conclusion on that after a few of them. But so I think that we always knew, it was going to have to be kind of built in some way. And we had kind of these different. We had originally had to submit 3 different ideas and 1 preferred one. And so we did have, the virtual reality classes, which I don't think any of us really wanted, but we put in there anyways. And then we had, this kind of pod thing that you would go into. But we didn't really want to do that either. We just put them forward as suggestions.
Maybe sell the National Park membership in the station to set up a booth.
Yeah.
we did, that was another discussion when we have a ranger, where we have a virtual ranger that could talk in different languages. But it ultimately just got simplified because in a competition like this, and this would be useful for all students, it really needs to be a one-liner. Competitions are about your one good 10-second pitch. So it ultimately, even though I had lots of these ideas about responsivity and incorporating sensors of wildlife in parks, it's like that all kind of muddies.
But those were part of the process.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. There were a lot of whole spectrum of different ideas that we had at certain points, trying to find, questions that were posed by the jury or panel, and trying to work through what, when you have a jury of, 12 to 15 people, there are a lot of voices, and it was a jury that was made up of people from NCPC, people from the Parks Department, people that were practitioners, so different kinds of perspectives. And you have to kind of take those and decide which ones you can really address and which ones you can't, and then decide how you can explain to those that you can't address why you went through a process and it didn't really work. And I think that's also of value to students. Is sometimes I know that you have more than one professor and they tell you different things. You don't know what to do.
And I think the winning proposal, they had lots of feedback and they never changed a single thing. Like
That's true.
Even in the rendering, like it never changed. Their project never changed.
Yeah,
They hardly even did more stuff.
they made a diagram that explained, there was a lot of discussion on, they had made a diagram, the way that the trees are outlined is in this grid, and the grid then also changes in elevation. I think it's like 1 foot, so, if sea level rise or climate, really happened incrementally, in feet, not in like 1.5 foot or all of a sudden 3 feet, then they thought it would really magically kind of show this. And so one of the questions was, well, what happens if the whole thing floods, it's all inundated with salt and all the trees die? Would you be okay with that? And so to answer that question, they made this diagram of all these different scenarios. So one with 3 trees dead, one with the whole trees dead, and then all of these outcomes are okay. So that was kind of their response to that comment, which, so they decided they were fine with it either way, even though it wasn't what they had initially conceived. But, trying to design it in a way to actually only change 1 foot at a time would be much more difficult. So.
Could you also talk a little bit about how you developed your ideas and represented them for the competition? Because I think that what you're saying is absolutely true, that in a jury where there's lots of proposals being evaluated, even really strong ideas sometimes don't win because of the way that they communicate or don't. And what was really striking, in addition to being a wonderful idea, it makes me sad that it's not going to be implemented, maybe it will, is that your maps sections were crystal clear. I mean, I think that anyone from a trained practitioner to, kind of a community member could look at what you were showing and understand what you were saying. I think the whole thing together so that this projected mapping, this projected imagery, what you're trying to do was really very clear. And so I'm wondering if at the beginning of the design competition you sort of storyboarded or figured out kind of the pieces and parts you wanted to represent, or did the means of representation sort of evolve in conjunction with your ideas?
We all have our own strengths that, so Halina made most of the diagrams, our architecture did all the projection mapping sections, and I did the renderings, and we also had our strengths that we then brought. We just said, okay, we'll harness what everyone's best at and delegate accordingly. And I also think also a bit of our personalities that our graphics are generally straightforward because three out of the four of us have practiced in offices. And so it's not always about making this like sexiest imagery, but about making it clearest. And so I think that probably shaped it as well.
Well, and I think the timeline of the competition, so there was the first presentation was about what your thoughts were that led you to this kind of, this mission was one image and a certain amount of words. And so could you elaborate on it? And so that was kind of turned into the first part of the presentation. And then the second one, we had to expand on it. And so we started looking kind of more at the distribution of the national parks and the kind of things that were happening in DC. So we kind of took it piece by piece, and I think because we had meetings every 3 weeks or something in DC, we had to we all had a lot of stuff going on, so we had to work very strategically and kind of not go down any large kind of deviations. Exactly. And so I think, having regular conference calls and trying to work through it together in terms of when people even had time, we had to make sure that everyone's time was being used most efficiently.
But it really was like additive.
Yeah, it was an additive process, and we had to we came up with our colors in the beginning
Yeah,
and changed them.
It wasn't that there was a big rush at the end. It was like, we did this and you move on, we did this and you move on, we did this.
And then there's a bunch of diagrams. I mean, there are things that we presented at checkup points that then didn't make it into the final because it was just too much about, the DC Memorial landscape or something like that. We had to kind of figure out how to condense it.
Using the train station was so out of the box. How did you get from put something on the surface or use something that's already to let's put it underground at a train station? What was the thought process?
They had given, Van Allen had a couple recommended sites that were all kind of within parks. And one of them was in the Anacostia neighborhood. And we had kind of already looked at this idea of projection, and we were looking at different sites within that neighborhood that maybe had a large wall or something like that, and none of them really did. And there was a community center or something that was right next to a train station there. And so then I think we started thinking about, well, we have these limitations if we project it outside, and we can only do it at night, and things like that. And somehow we went from being above the train to in the train, and it was kind of, I believe that's how it happened.
And also just looking at if I'm being honest, it's also like looking at imagery of DC to try to find something as a base for your rendering. You're like, oh, that's beautiful. Look, that's beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the more we went into it, we're like, oh yeah, they found more tension. But I think the initial was a bit of a stumbling on this and, finding the image
underground, and both of us lived in New York, and that's not a fun experience to be in the New York City subway system in the summer. But there, it was like nice and cold, and we were really enjoying ourselves. Then we had to come back up, and we're like, ooh, it's really humid up here. So also that then when we actually experienced it,